Hello all, and thank you for joining today. On behalf of the whole Stay in Touch team, just let me say welcome. And for those of you who've never attended one of our webinars before, just know that for the first part of the session, my co-presenter here, Sean Klein, will be walking you through the basics of group block management in Rover. And just like with our other webinars, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. And now, without further ado, please allow me to introduce you all to Sean Klein. Sean is a senior implementations consultant here at Stay in Touch. He has over 25 years of knowledge and experience in the hospitality industry, making him not just a Rover guru, but an expert in the industry too. So let's get started with today's webinar. Sean, would you please tell us a little more about Rover's group module?
Thanks, Christine. It's a pleasure to be out here and doing another webinar with everyone today. Today, I want to talk through a couple different things in regards to creating a new block, assigning some rates for them, whether it be a custom or an actual group reservation that we've built out a rate, talking about some things in the room details page and some items to look for, think of, and do, adding some reservations from the rooming list or the front desk, as well as kind of talk over some best practices and things that went through. So I'm going to be packed in with a bunch of different things, and I'm going to talk about items to, as always, things to think about, do as you go through and take into consideration for your groups. So with that, I'm going to take us directly into our lovely Wexford Bay Hotel that we use for some different things and talk about groups there. Groups, for everyone who has access to it, is accessing it from our main menu, going into groups, and I'm going to create a brand new group today. Couple different things to take into consideration that I always like to look at and go from is that when you're creating a group, particularly if you are interfaced to a CRS and want groups to go up, that I'm going to encourage, push, prod, and say best practice is to always make sure that everything on this first page is completed. And I will say specifically for Synexus CRS hotels, that the most important things are to make sure that you have information in the contact information, because if that is not there the first time this group was created, it will not interface to Synexus CRS. So best practice is to always complete all the information on here. So I'm going to start and create a group that I'm going to call, it's just going to be Sean's example group today. I didn't have a preset item. So the name is that. The name is going to be used in a couple places. It'll create our account originally, and that's changeable, but it's going to be one of the things that we'll search for or be able to search for the group from. I'm also going to create a group code that I'm going to use, and I'm going to use this as 0801 because I'm going to do an example group for August for some different things. This group code is important because this is going to be one way to look for it. As well, this is one of the key items that we use to communicate with any of the CRS places that we can communicate and take group blocks for. So that's always a key and is something to be unique and go from there. We're going to put myself as the contact, and I can never remember my direct line, so I use my favorite dummy line. And I'm going to put my email address. Now, I am going to, in this first case, use a group rate code that I've built out for a couple different reasons and show it from you, but we'll talk about that in a moment. One of the things that I always encourage and will say as best practice is that when you're setting up your dates, include pre and post dates, because if you include the pre and post dates, it's going to make it a little easier in the long run. I'm going to actually say that this group is only staying Thursday night, the 3rd of August, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in for August 1st, and I am going to say it's to the 5th because everyone's there, but we can give them the night of the Friday night as well. Release date, a couple different things on that. Release date will always default as when you first set a group as the first date of your group. You can simply change that to be whatever date you want and go forward with it and backwards so that it will release, prior to the group's arrival. One thing to note and know about this, or two things to note on release dates, is that the release date is that as the date turns from July 3rd into July 4th is when we will release this. So part of the night audit process is the release of group blocks, and so the role of this is that when we turn into the 4th of July for this particular group is when we will be releasing it. It does not release it at the end of the day. I'm going to set my initial status for this as a tentative because I'm going to go that way. And as I said, we've got a couple choices on rates. And one of the things I wanted to be able to show you is in relationship to rate codes. And that we've got the ability to have custom rates, or we have other abilities to do this. And now I want to go through. I'm going to use my test group because that's the group I think that's the one. I think that's the one I did. But once I put this in, I can go ahead and say save my group, and it's going to save this, and it's going to change up a couple different items for us. It does highlight our release now if we needed to release this for any reason. It does give us the ability to add add-ons and other things we want to add if it's going to be parking or things that get added onto the rate and goes from there. As well, it's going to give us our options for demographics and billing if we want to use those. I am going to highlight demographics briefly because it's good to put them in. If you go ahead and put your demographics in, this particular hotel does not have any defaulted or set that are mandatory, so I'm going to make everything a credit card guarantee. I want this to be a I'm just going to use the meeting room block. We've done a couple things. I'm going to create the source is going to be all call-in, and the origin was a call-in as well. But these will then default when we make reservations through the rooming list feature that we'll talk about in a few moments. But I'm always a strong proponent of making sure to get your demographics in there. Source and origin are two that you may not set sometimes. The reasons I would not set them is if you want to track how they're actually coming in. This way it doesn't default it to each one, but would ask your agents or take the information from your CRS to book it, so it'll say that it's call-in or came from the web and all those good fun things. Billing information, we can add routing information and send the charges back to the master account here. One thing to note is that if we do use this billing option right away, it's going to put this on everybody's within the group. It is not a pick these 10 people out of 20 people, etc., that are going to go from there, but it will go and put it on everybody regardless. And the one thing that we did add in here is that if we've said after we've saved our routes and we've put information in, that we did just recently add the ability that we can delete these items and go from there. So I'm going to say this and say, yes, I need to delete the billing information from these reservations, but I don't have any reservations already built. So as I was mentioning, and the last thing is that you can put notes that are going from here. And if you want to track actions, if you need to send it to a sales manager to create an action that you want to go to for the group that we want to go to the sales department, or it's going to be admin in this case, and I'm going to set this action to be on July 1st to check on pickup. That way these will come as either on the Actions Manager report or as well will show on the Action Manager itself in the group within the program. Since I've used a group, there's a couple different things that we're going to do. When we go to room block details, it's still going to give me the same add rooms and rates. And we can do that, and it's going to simply pull in the base information that we set up and pulled in for the group rate code, and it's going to set the main one. One of the main reasons why you would use a rate code itself versus a custom rate is if you want to if you need to have differing rates that are going through there. Maybe your hotel has one set of rates that are going to be more applicable Sunday through Thursday for the group, and maybe then different Friday and Saturday, so you can do that. In a custom rate, the rate is going to be the same for a particular room type across all dates within the block. The other reason you might have a rate that's attached here versus a custom rate is that the rate is then going to, maybe it's derived as a percentage off bar. If it's maybe a wedding or social groups that you're not offering a set rate, but it's going to change as bar changes, you could do those types of things. The other ability and the strength of using a rate code in and of itself is that you can place actual restrictions on it and send those out. So maybe, you've got a wedding group, for example, that is has a set rate, but you need to apply that they need a 2-night stay through on the Saturday night stay to get that wedding rate. So they've got to either stay, say Friday to Saturday or Saturday to Sunday, et cetera. Those types of things, you can put the restriction on the rate code. It's not something that we can do a blanket restriction on the block. So I've gone ahead and added in my rooms and rates, and it's going to bring in all of my rates. One of the secrets and things that I've learned, because we have all of our rates in here, is that there's 2 different tools I'll use. If I'm not going to block a rooms type, I will go ahead and simply condense it down, because I can go then to the rooms that I want to block, is one. The other thing that I do sometimes, because we're working in Chrome, is that I will change my zoom factor and just zoom in a little bit tighter. It doesn't display as much for there, and it makes it a little easier to see some things, but that's kind of one of the 2 different ways to work within this. I actually said I only wanted to put rooms in on the 3rd, so I am going to put 5 rooms in on the 3rd here, as well as I'm going to put in another 5 rooms in the Executive Queen. And this is one of the few times as you've worked with the program that we do ask you to save and go from there. So we do save those blocks and go from there. The other thing that you can do as well, if we wanted to block something longer, is we could actually put in a block on the very first date and use the arrow to copy it over and say how far do you want to copy it over. So you could block it all the way through to the end of the block if you so desired and go that way, and it will save it for you at the same time. I don't want to block any rooms on these nights right now, so I'm just going to leave these zeros and save that. So what we're going to do is we are going to total up those rooms and go from there. A couple different items that I will talk about here just for a moment. If you're using a custom rate, I will strongly suggest go ahead and set your rate up initially for the room types that you're going to block. But I will always, as a best practice, suggest that you put in rates for all the room types. Even if it could be a rate that you're going to upsell to and utilize for things that way, it could be the same rate. It makes it easier and more efficient in the long run, as the front desk needs to move people around. So even if you're only selling a group and blocking a group into the Deluxe Queen and the Deluxe 2 Queen in this particular example, I'm going to go ahead and suggest that you put in rates for all the other room types. It's not going to hold anything, but go ahead and do that. One other item here is that we will show at the very top the total of what's blocked. So we have 10 rooms blocked for that. And if I go back to my summary page, it is going to show the same 10 rooms blocked, as well as the potential revenue that is going to be earned and created on this. One thing to note is that our rate in here this potential revenue does include taxes. And one other fun thing that I did not discuss here and go from there is that if you wanted to attach a particular group or a company card that you have, I'm going to pick one of my good clients that we've got. I can't find them there. Pick on a client that we haven't built this out in this one. You can always attach a company card to that as well. If we needed to put in a travel agency, we can put in a travel agency as well for tracking purposes on this group card. Once we've created the group block and we've gone through and done this, I'm actually going to turn it to definite so that we can make some reservations to it. We will create an account, and an account is going to be a posting master and go from there. It always takes a few moments as we set and take those rooms from inventory and update those inventory items. We can go to account, and it is going to show us the information. It's going to have our account name there, as well as the account number that's been assigned to it. If you need to have your account for posting purposes say something different, you can change the group that will go from there and use that. It will show you the current open balance and any notes that we want to go from there. Moving to our rooming list, Our rooming list is going to give us two different items that will go from here. As we actually have reservations entered, they will show here and populate here. It is also a quick place that you can create and enter reservations. A couple things to take into consideration and know from there is that it's the information on the first columns here of number of rooms and room type will change based on the from and to dates. The from and to dates are always going to default to the first arrival date that you have on the summary tab and to the ending date on there and go from there. So if we want to look at the 3rd to the 4th, we are going to suddenly notice that I will see that I have deluxe queens here and deluxe executive 2 queen beds here, versus if I had this on the 2nd to the 4th, I don't have any that are available because we only have things blocked on the night of the 3rd. And the other thing that then goes with this is that once we have those, if we have, say we have deluxe queens, we now populate our number of rooms because we can simply come in here and add in reservations directly that will at least have a guest name and pull in all of the information as far as the statistics and demographics that we did. So we can add in Sean here as well as Christine. And we're going to add this, and I'm actually going to put in that I don't know that Christine has a sister named Suzanne, but we are going to add her in. We can add a company guest as well, and we can update these, and we've made those reservations. We can as well, for groups or companies that say, Sean, you know, I know my rooming list is due tomorrow, and I'm going to use everybody, but I don't know them. The other thing that we can do is we can simply add 1 or 5 or however many rooms you have in block and simply update it, and it will create a pending reservation. This is a reservation. It does show as picked up. If I go to my room block details, we will see that we have 10 rooms blocked and we have 3 picked up because those are full reservations. It's not a anything there. But we can go then, once we've got this, we can simply come in and update this to change it from pending to say that this is now going to be Yos and update that information. So a couple other things that we can do from here. As we go from here, we can go directly into these reservations. We can add more accompany guests. We can change the room type. And go ahead and update it. We can go through from here as well and assign a room if we wanted to directly and go from there and do those things. So we can do a lot of different items directly from here without going to the reservation, or if we wanted to, we can use that same option and go to the stay card if we needed to and add more information in there. The other things that are here is that we now actually get our search bar because we've got that. If we had pending reservations, we could say, show me only the pending, so you could clean those up and work within those. If you wanted to look at things but not look at cancels, you can use the exclude cancels. And the last thing to talk about from this main screen is that we have our plus sign on the far left-hand side, and that changes our menu options. It does give us the opportunity to email a very simplified rooming list for somebody. And so if we go ahead and do this, it will be a matter of do we want to show rate or not show rate, and we can put in an email address of where we want it to go to. And type this afternoon, and so that will email off a very simplified rooming list for it, or as well we could print it. The other thing that we can do is for rooms that are unassigned, we can use it and have the system auto-assign room numbers. So we can just let the system go through and assign the rooms that are open over those dates. And if we were on the 3rd of August, we could use this to check people in or check them out. And as well, the last thing that we can do is we could edit the names and say that we need to change this as well to anything else we want to, and make the quick changes to the names and go from there. So we've made some reservations that way. The other things that are here before I go to one more slide and then do 2 other items is that you can use transactions. Transactions is going to be where any room and tax that gets transferred through here, any bills that you wanted to do for catering can be posted, and you can move things around just as well with multiple bills, just like a standard reservation. And the last tab here is also our activity log does show our different items that we've got, our new group that we've added rates, that we've added blocks, all of those good things that we've made changes to. So now, two more fun things before we kind of open into questions. I did show you that you can make a reservation through the group summary on the rooms on the group tab, or on the rooming list tab. We can also as well make a reservation from the front desk, create reservations. Same idea, we're going to go for the 3rd of August, and we can come in and say that we are looking for Sean's example group, and go ahead, and we're going to see the group rate code that we've got, as well as the rooms that are blocked for it, and the number of rooms that are available. Same information as far as standard reservations, information about what we've got for the room descriptions, the rate, anything we've got that way, as well as the total room with taxes. And we can make that reservation. I'm not going to add any add-ons today. We can do the same things as say that Sean's coming in at, sorry, forgot to. Who do we want to do? We'll use an existing guest card. We can update times of arrivals that we want to, just like a regular reservation, and departures, as well add in our credit card payments and other fun things this way, so it becomes the full reservation. We can do, I'm short. I'm going to say it's a cash payment today instead of changing it. But it's going to go through and make a reservation as in the standard formats that we have. We can go ahead and send a confirmation if we want to, and then go to the stay card and make changes. But we've got this as a standard reservation. Now, once we have this, because we've got the group with it and we've got the company, it does show in our guest card that we've got the associated with the Stay in Touch companies, American Express Travel, as well as Sean's group. And all of our cards are going to show that same information and be able to transfer through and see those. So now, one thing that has been asked of me at different times, and I'm going to try and wrap this up quickly to open up for some questions, since it's taken 5 minutes till, is that I do like to use the arrival report as an alternate method of the rooming list for guests, because it will give you more information. You can go ahead and do an arrival report just for a particular group. So if I say that I need to say, look at report arrival guests from August 2nd to August 6th, I can find Sean's example group, and I can then go ahead and use things like if I wanted to put my reservation notes or show the additional names, I can get that information. And then I have Suzanne who's sharing with Christine, and I have those types of information that show there. So it does give a little bit more information than just a very simplified rooming list option. So now that I've kind of covered a fast and quick items for groups, I'm going to unmute everybody and go ahead and let you ask your questions if you have any. So I've now unmuted anybody. Are there any great questions from anybody that I can help answer and or pass on some information briefly?
Hey, Sean, it's Susan.
My favorite question asker.
When you added that share, how do we go back and make sure the share is listed when you added Suzanne to Christine?
Yep. So I can always use my search bar to go from here. It will, it showed on our test, but it would show if we have Suzanne, just as everybody else does, she's going to show here on the dual number or the dual head. And if I just go off and use the name, we've got both of them showing, and they do have the confirmation number. So if I click on Suzanne, it will take us, as with standard reservations, to Christine's reservation.
Okay. And it'll print a separate reg card for her.
It will not
too.
print a separate reg card, and it does not do a separate bill. It's just in the company guest. It's an extra name to go from there, but it is just an extra name to show on there and to use as a reference.
And that's standard for all shares then? It doesn't print a separate reg card for shares?
Correct. We use an accompany guest, which is why we always say, or additional guest. That's why we have to say it's a company guest. We don't really do a share in some other systems bases where you have 2 folios and 2 registrations and two everything that way. It's really just an accompany to list an additional name. And it was the short answer is it was a purposeful decision originally not to do shares because they create havoc and they constantly have issues and opportunities.
Okay, thanks.
Any other fun questions? One thing to note, and kind of as I was talking there when we first were looking at our group rates or our group, if we do a rate code, is that you need to make sure that your rate is set up to include all of these dates. Even though we're saying that this is checking out on the 5th, if it does not have a room rate in the rate code for the night of the 5th, it won't populate and show. So that's something to just be cognizant of and go from there. The other thing to look at and know from items for the group release date is that if we release rooms and the rooms release and you do not change it, but you go back in and add rooms, it will not re-release them. And then 2 other fun things, just so you do know in case you don't already know. If on the availability you utilize the group option and we look at dates that we have groups, one of the things that you can do is that when you see a group in here, if you're actually expand the group out itself, if you click on a given date, if I should have added extra rooms for this block, if I click on the date, I can go ahead and release rooms just for that one date. It will release everything in that date, but it wouldn't release things on the other side of it, on the other dates of it. So that's one thing to know. And the other report, I don't know if everyone's seen this one, that can be very useful is that we've added in a new group rooms report. This report does run on a 1-month-long basis. It will go up to 31 days. And the idea behind this group is that the top portion here is going to show everything that's all rooms for groups as the total for groups within the hotel. And then we'll show a basis of the actual groups that are making up the availability and are in that particular time frame, and looking at what is blocked, what is picked up, and what is still remaining to be picked up, along with what their group code is if they've got it, their first arrival dates, what their lowest rate is, the rate code if it's there or a custom, as well as the status.
So on this report, when the rate code says group, does that just mean it's just pulling from the regular rate code?
Nope, it'll say custom like this first one. This particular for this one is the group rate code. That's what somebody titled that group, that rate code.
Oh. Okay.
So it's going here. If I looked at the Beckman group, their rate code, the custom rate code, they're using they're not using the custom, they're actually using this rate code that's group. So it's pulling the name of that rate code.
Okay.
As Christine did mention, we have recorded this, so it will be available for you or your coworkers and friends that haven't seen it. But other than that, I want to say thank you and have a great afternoon.